Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All my dear students of class 8, welcome back to your biology online class. So today we will be starting with the fourth chapter in biology, that is ecosystem. Now you have come across the term environment every now and then. The environment is not fit for us to survive, or there is lot of pollution in this particular environment. What do you mean by the term environment? So plants and animals both live together in many different environments all around the world. We have the polar regions, very cold regions, where we have specific plants and animals. The polar bear, the penguins, they are specific to that particular type of climate, that particular environment. Similarly, deserts, the camels who live over there, and the adaptations they have for surviving in that environment are totally different from what polar bears have. Then the tropical, then grasslands. Each and every place has its own speciality. So environment is all the living and non-living things in a place. The environment in which we are staying includes both the living as well as the non-living creatures. Living includes us, the various animals we come across, the birds, and these are the living, the plants, everything includes the living factors in this environment. And non-living includes the temperature, the light, the wind, and how they affect us. They all affect us in some way or the other, and we are dependent on them. So this includes our environment, that is all the living and non-living things in a place. So environment is the surroundings, that is the air, water, plants and animals. Each kind of environment has many different kind of animal habitats, which we will discuss later in this chapter. So you can see the different kinds of environment, the desert environment. Then I have told you the polar bear, specific to the Arctic area, Arctic region, and then the Antarctica also, that is near the South Pole and the North Pole. Then we have the mountainous regions, then the plains, and then deserts. So you can see different types of flora and fauna, that is plants and animals, are specific to different habitats or different areas of the world. Is it clear? So living organism lives in close interaction with its environment. So what is interaction? What is interaction? Interaction. Inter-house competition you have, inter-school competition, that is between the schools or between the houses. So similarly, interaction, more than one kind of action, is a kind of action that occurs as two or more objects have an effect upon one another. They work together and they affect each other's activity. So it is a two-way effect, which is essential in the concept of interaction as opposed to a one-way causal effect. So what is basically that interaction is a kind of action that occurs as two or more objects have an effect on each other, that is, they affect each other's activity. That is what interaction is. So a living organism living in close interaction with its environment. And we can say that an ecosystem is what? Ecosystem is an interaction between living organism and the environment. We can even say that an ecosystem is a unit in which different living organisms interact with their physical environment. It is a unit functioning as one, functioning as a single unit, where each and everything that is included in it are dependent on each other. They interact, they work together, and that is how they affect each other and constitute the environment of that particular place. So ecosystem is a defined area in which a community lives, with interaction taking place among the organisms They interact with one another between the community and its non-living physical environment. Physical environment, the temperature, then the wind, the type of light that is available, what are the various effects of sunlight. These all are included in the ecosystem. So in very simple words, we can say it is formed by the interaction between all living and non-living things. Is it clear? So we will study ecosystem in detail. Now the word ecosystem is derived from Greek word oikos, which means a house, and this term ecosystem was coined by Sir Arthur Tansley in 1935. So he is Sir Arthur Tansley who coined the term ecosystem in 1935. Now what is ecosystem made up of? What are its components? So it includes both the biotic or living components and abiotic or non-living components. So you can see that the ecosystem consists of both the abiotic, that is non-living, and biotic, that is the living components. Now all living organisms, that is microorganisms, plants and animals, are called the biotic components of the ecosystem. They influence the life of other organisms directly or indirectly. So they come in the category of producers, consumers and decomposers, which we will study in detail in this chapter. So you can see the division of the biotic components, and consumers are further subdivided into primary consumers, then the secondary consumers, tertiary and quaternary consumers. Similarly, in the abiotic factors, we include the climatic factors as well as adaptive factors, which climatic factors include rain, light, wind, temperature. These factors are included in the climate, that determine the climate of a place and on whom these biotic components are dependent. Then other adaptive factors, you have the soil, what type of soil is present in that particular environment of that particular area, what is the pH, that is hydrogen ion concentration, then the amount of minerals, various minerals, that is potassium, sodium, calcium, etc. are the minerals that are present in the soil. What is the mineral content, the topography, that is what type of area, is it highland, is it mountainous, or it is a plain region. So it is all what constitutes the various components of the ecosystem. So these are the two types of components. Now we will study in detail about them today. So I've just told you the biotic components include what? They include all living organisms, and that is the microorganisms, the organism which we cannot see with our naked eyes, then the plants, various plants and animals which are around us, and all of them influence the life of other organisms directly or indirectly. So on the basis of how living organisms get their food, they are classified into the categories, that is producers, consumers, I had told earlier also, scavengers and decomposers. I had shown you the division. Now the first one is producers. Producers are what? They produce, the word itself is meaning they produce their own food. So they are also called as the autotrophs, right? It is autotrophs here. This is autotrophs, and they are also called as the producers. So can you tell me which organisms included? Which biotic factors are included in this particular category? That is the green plants. Green plants are examples of producers. Now all categories except producers are to be included in the heterotrophs, because all of them are dependent on ready-made food. None of them manufacture their own food. So some examples of these producers are trees, grass, then the berries, nuts, algae, phytoplankton. So you can just keep in mind that all the green plants are included in this category. These are the biotic factors which manufacture their own food with the help of sunlight and chlorophyll. Is that clear? Next category is consumers. So what are these consumers? That is organisms that cannot make their own food but depend directly or indirectly on food prepared by green plants. Is it clear? They are also called as heterotrophs. Obtain food by eating other organisms. Is it clear? All animals are consumers, and they can be further divided into the primary consumers, then secondary consumers, and the tertiary consumers. So primary consumers are basically what? They are also herbivores. They are called as herbivores, and you already know it. These are plant eating animals, or they eat the plants or the plant products. Examples are cow, horses, goats, rabbits, and grasshoppers. Then we have the secondary consumers, that is which eat the secondary consumers eat primary consumers, that is, for example, the snakes, lizards, and frogs. They eat the primary consumers, like they eat grasshoppers or other insects or bigger snakes. They can even consume the smaller animals, herbivorous animals, like even rabbits and all, squirrels, rabbits, etc. Bigger snakes can consume. So they are secondary consumers. And the tertiary consumers, they eat the secondary consumers. So they are also known as the top carnivores, and they eat the secondary consumers. They are not eaten by other animals. Examples are lions, tigers, and leopards. So these are the tertiary consumers. So various types of consumers, that is the primary consumers are they eat the plants. They are also called as the herbivores. The plant eaters, that is horses, buffaloes, cows, etc. Then the secondary consumers eat primary consumers like snakes, lizards, frogs, etc. And then we have they are both carnivores and omnivores in case of secondary consumers. They can be meat eaters, like for instance you can say the various types of snakes, or even the lizards and frogs. They are eating other animals. Or omnivores, they eat both animals and plants. Is that clear? Then we have tertiary consumers. I have told you just now, they are the top carnivores, that is the lion, tigers, and leopards. So you can see the various types of consumers. The primary consumers, like the example zebra has been given. Then we have the secondary consumer. Of course, the diagram has not been given. Then the tertiary consumers, the lion and all. Is it clear? Next is scavengers. These animals eat what? They eat the dead animals, that is they feed on the dead animals, and they include the animals like vultures, hyenas, etc. So animals that eat the dead animals are known as the scavengers. Scavengers help break organic material into smaller pieces, that is all the dead remains. Otherwise the earth would become what? Just be full of dead bodies all around, no one to feed on them, unless and until of course we have nature's scavengers, bacteria. But apart from this, the animals feed on that would take a lot of time, unless until these animals, the scavengers, that is hyenas and vultures, feed upon them and convert them into smaller pieces, so that they can easily be acted upon by the bacteria. Next is the decomposers, that is the word itself derived from the term decompose, that is breaking up complex substances into simpler ones. So they include the microorganisms that decompose dead remains of plants and animals to get their food. So examples are bacteria and fungi. What do these do? So that the complex substances are changed into the simpler ones. These microorganisms secrete digestive enzymes externally. So what are these enzymes? Enzymes are proteins that function as biological catalyst. What is the function of a catalyst? It is a substance that speeds up a chemical reaction, but itself it doesn't changed in the reaction. It remains unchanged during the reaction. So all the aspects or all the reactions that are taking place in our body or around us basically are in the natural cycle or in the ecosystem are dependent on these enzymes. Is it clear? So they are the catalyst, that is they speed up a chemical reaction, but they themselves don't get changed up during the reaction. They remain unchanged, unaltered. So I was just telling you the enzyme, just because what microorganisms are dependent upon. They secrete digestive enzyme externally on the dead organism and get their food, and they derive their food from the dead organism. And what do they do in this process? The enzymes decompose complex molecules into simple molecules like sugars and carbohydrates. So moles digestive carbs in things like bread. This you need not go into the details of this. Then we move on to the abiotic component, the non-living components of the ecosystem. So the non-living factors that living things need to survive are soil, then sunlight, water, air, temperature, and inorganic nutrients. Is it clear? So abiotic factors are also called as the physical factors, as they influence the existence and survival of organism. In some way or the other, they are dependent on these abiotic factors, and their life is controlled by them. So let's discuss in detail the various abiotic factors. Now, first factor, abiotic factor, is light. We all know that the green plants cannot manufacture their food without the presence of sunlight. So it is the major source of light on earth. We all know this. And green plants need sunlight to make their food, that is by the process of photosynthesis. So this is a process during which what happens? Plants manufacture sugar by combining with water, which is found in the soil and is absorbed by the plants, and along with carbon dioxide. Both carbon dioxide and water combine together in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll and form the sugar, and oxygen is released. So all organisms depend directly or indirectly on plants for their food, and both plants and animals need sunlight for their growth and development. We also need sunlight for our proper growth and development, because we know that vitamin D is synthesized with the help of sunlight only, and then various other problems crop up if we don't get proper amount of sunlight. Next factor is temperature. Now we know that all the places, there are so many types of places that we visit. You can see this is an example of Antarctica and Arctic region. This is desert, and this is again mountainous areas. Now all of them have different temperatures, but we human beings can survive in a particular standard temperature, that is optimum temperature, or the plants can have different places, at different places they have different optimum temperatures in which they can survive. So the temperature at a place varies from day, that when it is hot, to night when it is cold. and it also varies in different seasons of the year. But the living organisms are most comfortable at a temperature of around 20 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius. If it is less or if it is more, we or the other organisms which are there, they experience difficulty in their survivals. So most life exists within a fairly narrow range of temperature from about 0 degree to about 50 degrees Celsius. That is the temperature, and above that or below that it is very difficult for life to exist. But I told you just now, the most comfortable zone or the most comfortable temperature for living organisms is between 20 to 40 degrees Celsius. So only a few organisms can maintain an active metabolism, that is all the life processes that are occurring, they can occur below 0 degree for long. And most organism enzymes are denatured when that is they lose their shape and stop, because each and every enzyme that is the biocatalyst and which are responsible for all the actions or chemical activity that is taking place in a body or chemical changes that are taking place in a body, they get these enzymes have a particular shape and particular structure, and when they are exposed to a temperature which is above 50 degrees Celsius, they get denatured, they lose their shape and they stop working. That is why what happens during when we have high fever, these enzymes get destroyed and all the life processes come to an end, and it can pose a danger to the life of a person also if the fever is not controlled. What is the average human body temperature? That is 37 to 38 degrees Celsius, and if it is more, if it exceeds, then it becomes difficult for the survival of a person. But all the living organisms which are living in temperatures which are below this comfort zone, they have certain adaptation. That means they have certain features which make them survive in that particular type of temperature. For example, we know the camels have what type of adaptation? They have a hump on their back so that they can store water and they can stay without water for a longer period. Then the next factor is water. So I wind up my lecture over here today. We will discuss soil and other factors, abiotic factors, in the next lecture, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.